Welcome to Learn As You Gothi. On this episode, we're going to talk about Blot, its structure for small groups, large groups, and a little bit of etiquette, some do's and don'ts when you are invited to or conducting a Blot. Stick around. Welcome to Northwoods Kindred. I'm your Gothi Bodvar, and on this channel we discuss all things asatru Kindred related. So hit that subscribe button if you want to see how we do it in the Northwoods. Today we're going to talk about Blot, and I'm going to cover really some of the topics that have come up on my Discord because other newer Gothis or Gothis in training or Gothis by default have had some circumstances that they didn't really know how to work through. So they ask me questions, I answer them, but then I try to take those questions, consolidate them, and give them to you here so you can benefit from everyone's experience, not just the experience that you have. So what's a Blot? Blot comes from the base of lot, or H-L-A-U-T, lot, which is blood, essentially, and it would be a sacrifice. That's essentially what the meaning is. It's a sacrifice or an offering. You can define it however you wish, and I'm sure that many different scholars are going to define it a different way. But in the modern pagan landscape, or Norse pagan landscape, a Blot to us is a ritual sacrifice, be that of a living animal, or just of a beverage, or just of your time and your energy and your efforts. So the sacrifice itself isn't so important. It's more about the structure of the event that takes place. And we have our own structure here at the Northwoods, and you can see it in some various videos, but we're going to talk about why that is and different structures and how we evolve it for different group sizes, because that's important. If you're going to be a Gothi, you may have 3 people this Blot and 50 people next Blot. So you want to make sure that you know how to adjust your Blot structure in order to meet the crowd that you're standing in front of. So the first one we'll talk about is a solo Blot. And of course I have a video, you can see that here, and I talk about solo Blots and how to conduct them. But the idea behind a solo Blot is it's generally done when you are either in need of saying thank you or you are in need of some help, such as I don't know how many times somebody told me they're going into the hospital or they're entering into this contract or some things are happening, so I will come out here and I'll do a solo Blot and I'll just make an offering and ask the gods to look after them or take care of them or heal them or whatever happens. So generally they're kind of in response to a need. Now if you're a solo practitioner, you probably do solo Blots for your seasonal celebrations or your quarterly celebrations or however you divide up your wheel. But initially, I mean, for a group, for a Gothi that's in charge of an entire group, generally the solo Blot is just to answer some sort of a need or to say thank you if your need was answered and you want to say thanks to the gods and make an offering for their intervention. Now, all the Blots that I'm going to talk about are going to be structured the same way, so I'll talk about the structure a little bit. They'll always begin with a procession. We start somewhere over there and we walk into our circle, and the idea is that the procession exists in order for everybody to kind of get in the mindset and get comfortable and sort of connected to the environment they're in. If we just showed up in a circle and then started the ritual, it would take a little while before everybody got into it. But the idea behind a procession, and ideally if you process with a drum beat like we do, it gives people the time to just kind of drop everything, get in the mindset of what they're doing and why they're here, and forget about all the troubles and trials that they're going through, and just connect with the landscape, smell the air, listen to the birds, and all that sort of business. And we usually cover that in a brief prior to stepping off. This would be done for all sizes of rituals, with the minor exception of a super large ritual. If we're doing it at a large event center, a lot of people may already be there, and we may process with a small core group like we did at Pagan Festival last year. So after the procession, once we're in the Vey or the ritual area, we will open it. Now we open it with 4 corners. I know that a lot of people do it differently, and I know that that has Wicca influences, but we do it for our own reasons, mostly learned habit, and because we've been doing this a long time, and long before anybody complained about the differences between asatru and Wicca. So this is the way that we've developed for our use, and this is the way that we do it. And it doesn't matter if you do it our way. You can do 4 corners, you can just do a general invocation, you can do 4 corners with up above and down below, however you want to do it, whatever feels comfortable to you. I know that we were just at a Highlung concert and they did a 4 corners and then an up above and a down below in their ceremony. So neither is right or wrong. You do what's comfortable for you, what gets you in the right headspace for the oncoming ritual. And after you open the ritual with that, you will do your invocation or invitation. I don't like the word invocation because it sounds like I'm demanding presence from the gods, whereas invitation just means that I'm offering, for them to come join us so we can give them some reward or some offering. So after the invitation, we're going to do an offering. And in our case, most of the time we offer mead. Sometimes, if it happens to be slaughter season, there could be an offering of blood, or it could be if we have just downed game in a hunt, then we would bloat over the animal and we would offer blood as well. We've done that before. If you're one of our patrons, you'll see a full video on that. If you're not one of our patrons, you'll see a video that at least alludes to those types of bloats. And after the offering, we'll ask the gods to bless this mead, this offering, and we will do 2 different types of blessings on us. We'll do an external where we sprinkle with the Spigdinsbrek, and then we'll do an internal where we go around and we take a drink and then we speak on the gods. Now, these 2 parts are important because they're primarily what's going to change if we're doing larger rituals. The bigger the ritual gets, the less involvement there is for the individual participant. And after the blessing takes place, we're going to go into other work. And other work is this point where we would do anything else, be it an Alsavatni or a naming or some other ceremony like we do when we do Charming of the Plow, or a wedding or an oath taking, or any other ceremony, maybe even just gifting, any other ceremony that we would want to take place during ritual in the presence of the gods would happen right then and there at other work. And after the other work is completed, then we'll close the ritual and we'll bid the gods, a safe journey home, and we'll end the ritual always by saying this ritual has ended. For us, that's a condition that says that the ritual is over, and at that point we kind of drop our guard, and then it's like a big group hug and everything. But there's always this moment where the ritual began when we stepped off for procession. The ritual is over when I say, this ritual has ended. Now you can use, again, whatever verbiage you want, but it's important to leave the cue that the ritual is now over and you're free to mill about and conversate and laugh and joke and do whatever you want to do after that. So it is important to put a bookmark on it. And another thing that we should probably cover before we get too much into the different sides of the rituals is know your audience and know your people and brief them accordingly. So if we have people that are in wheelchairs or on canes, or pregnant mothers, or people who are somehow immune compromised, and we know that people are going to be potentially could be weak and not be able to stand or last the entire ritual, then just make sure that you mention in your brief that if you get tired or you need to sit down, that's okay. If you lose your balance or whatever, like if you need someone to help hold you up, then flag over whoever your person is, whoever does that sort of security role. Just make sure that they know that they're not going to mess this up by taking care of themselves during the ritual. If something comes up or there's some sort of a medical reason why they have to take care of themselves. Because I wouldn't want somebody to stand there in ritual knowing that they should sit down and then pass out because they thought that they were going to mess it up by sitting down. So they should know that there's some freedom here to actually take care of yourself. The needs of the people in attendance are paramount over the ritual itself and everything else that's going on. We talked about the solo, and one thing that probably you won't see in the solo so much is the actual blessing with the Spigdinsbrek. Now sometimes I'll take some of that mead and I might do like this, or I might bless myself with it that way instead of sprinkling it, but then I'll always take the drink and speak on that point. So in a solo, I have to do all of that myself. And if it's a small group, like say myself, my Gidya, and maybe 1 or 2 of my kids, then we would conduct it just like we would with a medium-sized group or anything else, whereas it would all go in order, and we would go around first and we would sprinkle with the Spigdinsbrek, and then, or the Lottine, blood twig or blood tine, and then after that we would go around with the horn, and everybody would take a drink and they would say their piece with the horn, say thanks for the intervention that God or goddess had had in their life. Now, when we get to the size of a medium group, it's really kind of on the Gothi to make the judgment call whether they're going to do that horn, the point where people start talking. Because the larger the group gets, the more interaction you give the participants, the longer that it could take. And sometimes brevity is king. Sometimes you have a limited window of time for which you can do this. And then with a large group, almost never would I pass the horn, unless I had a very specific core group in the middle that we would pass the horn with, and the larger group was just more of as a witness. And then I would limit the amount of sprinkling. I wouldn't probably sprinkle each person individually. I would go around and sprinkle like large groups of people to get as much done as possible. Now on the occasion of Pagan Fest, we probably, I don't know how many people we had in attendance, probably at least 50. And we had a core group in the middle which consisted of members of each of our kindreds, and we had 3 Gothis, the Gothi from the Iron Ravens, the Gothi from Northwoods, and the Gothi from Spokane. So we decided in conversation prior to the ritual that only the Gothis would speak with the horn, but every person there would get an individual blessing. So what happened was at that phase of the ritual, I poured mead into the other 2 Gothis' bowlies, and they went out and they set out to bless everybody in the arena while I did everybody up on the center stage. Now the video's out here. You can drop in and see that video and it'll make sense to you there. But we had to customize that large group ritual because it would have just taken too long to go around with the horn and pass it to every single person to take a drink and speak on it. Now you can have your mead Valkyrie or whoever does that give everybody mead, but not everybody will get at that moment of center stage at the ritual. That's entirely up to the Gothi, and neither of those ways is wrong. And if you have all day to stand around and let people speak, then by all means, if you're comfortable with that, let it happen. And that may introduce other problems that we'll talk about in a second when we talk about Blot etiquette. Did you know that the Northwoods Kindred isn't just a podcast? We are a living, breathing kindred with all kinds of helpful stuff all over the web. Now we've made it super easy and convenient for you to stalk us by putting everything that we have into one easy to find location. In the description below, we added our link tree, and that'll take you to everything that we have all over the net. I hope that helps. Por vigi, my friends. Let's talk about Blot etiquette. From the very beginning to the very end, we'll just kind of cover them in order. The first one is during the procession, when we're walking out here. It's proper to be quiet, to silence your cell phones or turn them off, to not hold conversations or sideline conversations, but to really mentally focus and kind of get your brain in the mindset that we're getting ready to go into a sacred place. As we say here in Arve, in a place that is in between places, in a time that is in between times. So this is where we meet with the gods and the spirits and our ancestors and the land whites and all the other creatures that inhabit this space. We meet them here in a time that's in between time and a space that's in between spaces. And that's the beauty of this. So it's nice to kind of get your mind in the mindset that that's where you're going. You're going to this other world, this other place where you can't affect your life outside of here. You can't fix your problems. You can't pay your bills. You can't solve these issues. All you can do is go be present and live in that moment, in that one moment of time that's in between time, in that one present moment. And if you can focus and get centered before you get here, you'll be all the better equipped when you get here. But it's really considered bad etiquette on the way out here to be talking, texting, doing that last minute email, or any of that garbage that takes you out of the ritual, because the ritual begins when we take the first step. After ritual has begun, it's generally appropriate to just be quiet and enjoy the ritual and not ask questions about what's happening. Now we have done some rituals for the purpose of education, generally a Heimdall ritual where it's been each phase we've stopped and discussed it and then moved on to the next phase because they were for educational purposes. But generally speaking, anytime a ritual is conducted, when you come in, the only time anybody will say anything is if they're saying hail in response to what you or someone else has said, or if it's their turn to speak, in which case they'll the floor is theirs. On that note, why it's important to silence your phones or not bring them out here is because the buzzing of a cell phone, or even if it's on vibrate, like all of those things take you out of the moment and bring you back to the real world where we're trying to not be there for a little moment in time. So I tend to leave my phone away from me. It's not on me at all during any of these rituals. But I don't restrict people from doing that. I just ask that they make sure that they're silent and they're not going to buzz and they're not going to ring and they're not going to disturb the ritual, because anything that disturbs the ritual disturbs the focus and the moment that everybody is trying to live in. And that includes leaving the ritual and coming back, with the exception of pets and children. Children come and go. We're not going to put them on a leash. We're not going to have them screaming, crying. If a mother is there and she's holding the baby and the baby's crying, that does not bother us. So we do not care. We would rather have the full package than have the mother leave in the middle of it, because it just doesn't matter. If the baby's crying, then the baby's crying. That we don't hold that against anybody. If a dog's barking or playing, then the dog is barking or playing. We don't hold that against anybody. But a grown adult with, with the wherewithal to know that they're disrupting the ritual, they should be quiet, and they should never come and go in the middle of the ritual unless it's an absolute emergency. Now, the only exception to that would be our grindvætter, which is our security guy, and he exists in order to leave and intercept anybody who's trying to join in the middle, or to escort someone, or to help someone if they're sick or they're passing out. He has the full authority to come and go in the middle of a ritual as much as he needs to, because his role is to keep everybody else in the space so that they can stay here and stay focused. And then and in most cases he has no job to do in most cases, but he has the full authority to go do the job if it needs to get done. We'll say, like, if a UPS driver's coming out here to get a signature, he'll intercept them and he'll sign it so that he doesn't interrupt the ritual. So leaving or joining after the ritual has started is generally a faux pas that we don't do, and you just brief people on that. So you got to make sure that all these rules are said. You can't have unsaid rules and just expect people to know. I'll cover that one in a minute. This is a big one, and this is one that triggers a lot of people, and if it triggers you, hey, do it your own way. But the way we do it here is when we have a bloat or a sacrifice, it is to a specific deity or group of deities for a specific reason. Maybe we're bloating to Odin for Sigurblot, or maybe we're doing a Disa bloat, or we're doing a Heimdall bloat because we're getting ready to do a craft gathering. But the ritual is very specific to the deity that we're bloating to. So it's considered really, really bad form to, in the middle of a Heimdall bloat, to raise a horn to Thor. You got to kind of know what we're doing here. So if this is the whole ritual is to thank Heimdall or to ask for his blessings or his intervention on our workings, it's very bad to say, "Hail Thor," because Thor wasn't invoked or invited. Thor isn't part of this ritual, and we're here. Like, how would you like it, honestly, if you were at a birthday party and it's your birthday and then they invite somebody else to come in and blow out the candles for you because they want to make that guy feel good too? It just doesn't work right. So when we do a ritual, for us, a bloat is very specific to a specific deity or a group of deities, and that'll be said beforehand. There'll be no questions. We do get some people that want to raise a horn to their personal patron or something during bloat, and that's just not how we conduct it here. And another occurrence that you'll see is sometimes we have outside guests that are not of the asatru faith. I know that there's kind of mixed feelings on that in the community as to whether or not a Christian should be standing in bloat with us. But we kind of have a way with, some of our members, and I'm sure some of yours and other people you know are in mixed faith households. But it's important for the other faith member of the household to know that this isn't anything scary or sketchy or weird. It's just a standard ritual that we do. So we invite them. They're allowed to sit in ritual with us as long as they obey the rules. And if we're going around and we're raising horns to Heimdall, they're not raising horns to Mother Mary and Jesus. They're raising horns to Heimdall, or at the bare minimum just saying hail or hail Heimdall. They don't have to speak on it, but they do have to keep their deities out of our sandbox, so to speak. Another issue we have with guests sometimes is that there's a lot of people who don't take this as seriously as we do. For them, religion is just another toy to play with as they see fit. And if that's you, then fine, that's you. Live your life your way. But for us, it's very serious. So we've had an occasion where an individual was actually, we'll say we were offering kanelbullar, which are Swedish cinnamon rolls, to the earth as part of a ceremony that we were doing. And one of our guests was eating the kanelbullar in the ritual space during the ritual. Now, I didn't specifically say don't eat it, so that's on me. So if you have specific requirements like that and people who've never been, those are kind of things that you have to work out and say. But while every kinsman here noticed it and took mild offense, nobody said anything because they understood that really the rules in this Vey are to really maintain the peace at almost all costs until it can't be maintained. And in that particular incident, it wasn't worth breaking the peace in order to correct the individual. That's the kind of thing that you deal with at a later time. But it is generally considered bad form to consume the sacrifice that you're supposed to be sacrificing. So that's just something to keep in mind if you're ever invited to someone else's ritual. So by default, let's just assume that the sacrifice is not for our consumption, but for the consumption of the gods, with this small exception of the horn of mead that we drink. And the last thing is, at least here, we do not consider our rituals as a spectator sport. So even though some of our members, others, significant others, are of a different faith, we allow them to watch once. So it's like, hey, if you want to see what your partner is up to, you are welcome to come watch. You can stand in the circle or outside of it. You're allowed to watch without any participation, and that means be quiet and just watch the ritual take place. Beyond that, they can come be a part of the ritual, or they can stay in the house or stay away from the ritual, because we don't look at it as something you just get to come hang out and watch every time. You can be a part of it, or you can be removed from it, because it's not really fair to those that are here, that are speaking their heart, and they're talking to the gods, and they're saying thank you for Heimdall's intervention or Thor's intervention and getting them through this dark time, and then to have spectators hanging on the outside of the edge, judging, coming up with their own ideas about what's happening. So we don't figure that's fair, but we'll always give them the opportunity to watch, because they are an important part of our members' household, and they should know what happens. They should have eyes on it, and they should be welcome to stand in this circle if they want to do it according to the rules and honor the gods that we actually invite during our rituals. So that's how we do it, and I hope that answered most of your questions about the Blot ritual, or at least the way that we conduct it here at Northwoods Kindred. If you got any questions, throw them down there, ask me them. I'll certainly do my best to answer, or better yet would be to follow our link tree over to our Discord and then get into discussion with our people about it, because you're going to get a lot more better answers from a lot of people than just my interpretation of things by joining in and communicating with us on our Discord channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please do that if you enjoy this content. We got more coming up. For all you new Gothis and Gijus out there, I hope that this gave you one more step in the right direction so that you can help lead your kindred, lead your people, inspire others to do the same, all right? I'll see you on the next video. Dor Vigi, my friends. This is Learn As You Gothi, and on this episode we're going to talk about Blot, or some people call it Blot. I don't like that. I had to say it though. I could not say it. Get it out of my system.
Yep. Shake it out.